One of my viewers found this PS Vita in a storage unit that he only paid $50 for. He said that it charges and it'll turn on, but not all the time. So we're gonna look at this one first. If we have time, we'll look at this PS Vita that I paid $80 for. It was dropped in water. The seller put it in rice. Now the orange charge light comes on, but it won't actually power on. So let's check this one out first, and if we have time, we'll get to this one. Let's first see if it'll charge. We have an orange light that blinks. Now, a lot of times an orange light on a PSP just means that the battery needs to be charged for a while. However, I've had this battery charging for a couple hours and it's still blinking orange, so I think we have a deeper problem. Let's see if it'll turn on. And we get no power. So the first thing we need to do is check out the battery. To do that, we need to remove these 2 screws, these 4 screws, and I think, nope, right here, 2 more screws. I'll be using a Phillips 00. This has clearly been taken apart before. Some of these screws are a little bit loose. This one's not. Oh, actually, that one's tightened down all the way. The other one I just took out from the bottom was not all the way tight, so I know that somebody has been into this before. And now I'm just going to use a pry tool out of my iFixit toolkit. This video is not sponsored by them, but I use their tools even in videos that aren't sponsored by them. Oh, and we got a memory card in this. That was a bonus. 4 gig memory card. We also do have the, it looks like a SIM card in there. That's cool. Battery connector, and then this 1 ribbon cable right here. And then we can get the back off that has the battery in it. And just taking a quick look at this board, I don't see any issues at all. No evidence of any liquid or anything going on there. Let's try and plug this into power. I've heard these things can power up without the battery, so let's try it out. And we get nothing. Okay, so let's try and replace the battery and then see if it'll power up. And actually, just looking, we do have kind of like some debris over here on the board. Something kind of sticky. That's not good news. Yeah, look at that. Okay, so we might have some liquid issues on this one, but let's try a new battery and just see if that'll work. Oh, but before I do that, let's test this one. See what voltage we're at. Got my meter set on DC voltage. 3.6 volts out of, I believe these are 3.7 volt batteries. We might have to remove it in order to tell. So that's actually not that bad. We might have a different issue other than a battery issue. And let's check the voltage of this replacement battery. This is just one that I have sitting around. I just stole it off of a different PS Vita that was not working. 3.795. Okay, and this is a 3.7 volt battery. So we should have a lot more luck with this one. Let's install this battery into this PSP and see what happens. I feel like there's probably something else going on with it, but this is just a quick, easy way to check that. All right, now this battery should be loose. There we go. I just got to feed it through. And I just noticed, oh, some potential issues right down here. We got some sort of liquid in here. That's no good. And this would actually go over here, so that could be an issue. Okay, but let's replace batteries and just see if that might happen to fix it. I think we got some more work ahead of us though. Now I just need to put this bar in, this little piece in, then we can try it. But only after I make sure that I'm actually putting in the replacement battery, and I'm not. Oh man, I'm glad I checked that. I almost put the exact same battery back in. Okay. this one out, and we're gonna put the unknown battery up here, and then the known good battery we'll put down here. And it goes like that. There we go. Okay, now we're ready to reinstall this thing. Now we'll just plug this battery back in. I'm not going to plug the back plate back because we don't need that part, just to test. All right, so first of all, does it charge? My charge cable's a little too short to get this in view really well. And our light stays orange. Let's try and turn it on. Look at that! So all that was wrong with this one is the battery. So even though this is showing 3.6 volts, maybe it's just bad. I'm actually going to keep this on a charger just to make sure, because I don't want to recycle these batteries if they might be good, because these aren't really available anymore. So I will be charging this up for a long period of time just to see if it'll actually charge all the way up and I can reuse it on something. So it looks like PSP number 1 is working now with the new battery, but we still got to inspect this liquid damage because I don't want to put it all back together if there's damage on the board. So let's do that now. And I do see a little bit of evidence of liquid right here. We already know there's some over on this end of the board. So I'm going to start taking this section apart and see if I can see if liquid got down in here, if it was mostly on the surface, and then the same thing over on this side. A little bit of stickiness down in there, not too bad though. Looks like this button was spared. Actually don't really see anything else. I think I should probably take this board out down here, and then also this board over here. And while I'm at it, I might as well just take the main board out just to inspect it and make sure there's no liquid down there as well. Now the seller that I bought this from said that he paid $50 total for the whole storage auction, and he found this one PS Vita in it, and I bought that from him for $50. So anything else he might have found is just profit. I've never gotten into this storage unit game, but I would like to. I think that sounds pretty fun. But honestly, like the chances of finding, you know, good stuff in some of these storage units is just not great, I feel like. All right, and now with those off, it's time to remove ribbon cables. And I like to just pull off one side of them, if at all possible. That way I don't really have to keep track of where they go. Don't really need to anyway, because I don't think any of these are interchangeable, but just makes it go faster if I can keep some of them in place. The more parts and pieces you can kind of keep in place, usually the faster it is to do a disassembly. Not always, but usually. And I think, yeah, there we go. Now one more ribbon cable here. And now, this one's kind of tricky because they have these little holding tabs right here. Same with the other one, actually. So I just lift it up, put a little pressure on it, and then lift on it, and it just comes right out. All right. Now we should be basically free with this board. There we go. Okay, and the other side looks like it could use a good cleaning. We actually have a little bit of liquid residue here, a little bit of corrosion, but nothing serious. So that's good news. And then down inside here, there's maybe a little bit of evidence of liquid, but really not much, so nothing too much to worry about there. Let's move over to this side. Remove that locking tab. Okay, and just a tiny bit right here, but really not bad at all. All right, now we need to remove the main board. Now I remember, I've done some of these a long time ago. I fixed some of these, and I remember this piece. It's annoying. It sits right in there and keeps you from getting the entire board out, this one little screw. So we got to take, I think, this whole piece out right here. Yep, there we go. And then, of course, this guy. There we go. All right. Will it come out? Oh yeah, it's got the screen connector under there. I just want to see how the board looks though. I don't even necessarily need to disconnect the screen, but let's get a good view of it. Okay, what do we think? Any problems at all? This board is really clean. There's a little bit of residue over here, not much at all. I'm not even sure that that's from any liquid damage that got in here. It's like a stain on the game card reader there. All right, I'm actually just going to put this in. This looks really good. Let's look underneath. And we need to do a bit of cleaning here, but really, this isn't bad at all. I'm just going to get my toothbrush and some isopropyl alcohol and go through here and clean this up. Then we'll be ready to reinstall all the boards and then just retest and make sure everything works at the end. So there wasn't like a lot of liquid in here, but there was liquid kind of like in a lot of places, just not very much of it. So I actually did a bunch of cleaning on this. Didn't get it perfect. There's still some grooves and stuff that have residue in it, but I got most of it pretty good. So I think I'm gonna call that good. Got a little bit more here on this, but overall it's in much better condition than it was. And I got all the important stuff out. It's just not gonna be perfectly clean, but I think I'm gonna call it good enough. So now I'm gonna get it reassembled and then we can see if it works. So we need to first connect this screen cable back on the back of the board. Oh, thought I had it, but I didn't. There we go. And now we need to line everything up correctly, make sure all the ribbon cables are up from underneath the board. And actually, I think that's good. Am I missing any? No, that looks pretty good. Okay, so I just need to push it down, engage those clips. Okay, easy enough for that part. Now we need to get this piece with this screw in, which is kind of a pain, but we need to bend the camera forward. And then we can just put that right in there. Then the screw gets screwed down just like that. And now the camera. And there we go. Now I got a couple ribbon cables. This one first. Easy enough. And let's get the two pink screws in. These are probably my favorite screws out of all devices that I work on. They're like a, they're more of like a, almost like a purpley pink, but very vibrant, bright and vibrant pink. Okay, that one's good. Now I believe we can put this board in. And why does it not want to slide down on there? Better lift it back up and check that out. Oh, there's a little tab right here. Under the tab, then lift the ribbon cables. Then, there we go. Now it's together. Now this little ribbon cable here. There we go. Some of these ribbon cables like this one have little ears on it. You have to make sure those ears seat down in the connector as well. Some ribbon cables like this one have ears, but they don't seat down anywhere. So you just push them in kind of until the cable bottoms out and you're good. But then other ones, the ears actually sit down in the connector itself. So, okay, that one. And now this one. It's always fun working left-handed with my tweezers, but that's the best way to get some of these in. Much less coordinated, but it's still such a handy skill to have. There we go. And truck using his Jake brake. Thanks, pal. Not that I have a problem with that normally, But I live in a small town, and he's turning his Jake brake on right through the middle of town. Which, I don't know if it's technically legal in this town, but either way, it's annoying. Okay. That just kind of sits on there. Oh, come on. Nope. Point down. There we go. Come on. Oh, no. All right. New strategy. That won't work. New strategy. Come on. Okay, new strategy. Just going to use my fingers. Sorry, you can't really see that probably. Back to my original strategy. There we go. Okay, that's in. Now we need to get all of these little plates on with the screws, and that will hold everything down nicely. And then it'll be almost time to get this board installed back into the back case installed. And with all of these support plates installed, we can now install the Wi-Fi card, and I will show this. I'm not going to skip past this just because this part's actually kind of tricky. My first few of these a long time ago took me a long time to get right. Okay, and with that installed then, okay, I have to remember the white one goes through here like that. And then this snaps on, just clips on, I believe. Clip on. Yeah, there we go. Then the white one gets threaded through these little channels. Right, here's one. There we go. And then it plugs on right here, just like that. And then it also threads through these guys right here. There we go. All right. And then these guys just thread through these little tabs under here. This part's pretty easy. I think the white wire is usually one that was most confusing for me. Oh, come on. There we go. Okay, there we go. And we got to fit it down in this little channel. And here we go. All right. That's in. And these just slip right on here. Nothing sticky on there anymore, which is nice. That goes right there. There we go. This one goes here. And there we go. Now with all that done, we can install the battery connector and then the connector for this back plate, both. Let's do the back plate first, then the battery, and there we go. We do need to make sure this camera lines up correctly as we place it down, and it does. All right. All right, and now with it all clean and all back together, let's see if it charges. Should get an orange light, and we do. Charge is good. Now let's just double check and make sure it turns on. And there we go. So PS Vita number 1 is all fixed up. Obviously, I do need to test a game in it and several other things, but so far this one's looking good. Let's move on to PS Vita number 2. And PS Vita number 2 does charge. Let's try to turn it on. Yep. We just get nothing. Now I know this one was dropped in some sort of liquid, so let's open it up and see how bad the damage is, and hopefully it was just water. Sometimes when people say liquid damage, it's not really the kind of liquid you want to be dealing with. So for this one, we've got 2 screws on each side, 2 screws down here, and a screw right up at the top. With all of those screws off, we can pry the case apart and see how bad this one is. You never really know what you're going to get with anything liquid damaged. It could be totally unfixable, or it could just be some corrosion you have to clean off and then it's good to go. Well, there's the first problem. We've got a broken locking tab down here, which is for the back case, which isn't a big deal. Oh, I already see some corrosion. Is that missing pieces? Ah, we might have some missing pieces right there too. Let's get this battery disconnected. I don't want to short anything out using my metal pick. Okay, battery disconnected. Let's see if there's any voltage in the battery. Yeah, 4.17 volts. Okay, for a 3.7 volt battery, that is fully charged. All right, so now we need to disassemble pretty much the entire thing because I don't know what was damaged or where the damage occurred. So let's just start taking it apart and see what we find out. I'm going to go all the way down to the board and then remove the board so we can look underneath. So we've got 2 screws right here. And I think this comes up. It's been a while since I've taken one of these versions apart. There we go. Okay, pretty easy so far. And the battery, man, the days of batteries not having adhesive on them, that's amazing. Just comes right out. All right, and then it looks like here and here, got 2 more screws. A screw here, a screw here, a screw here, and a screw here. I feel like there should be a plate across here, but maybe not. Never know what you get when you buy stuff like this because, you know, a lot of times somebody's already tried to fix it and messed it up worse or whatever. And so you kind of have to deal with the original problem and the problem that the other person caused. And I don't want anybody to take that as you shouldn't try and fix stuff. You totally should. And I totally am support of people trying to fix their own stuff. It does sometimes make other people's jobs harder if you have to take it somewhere, which is fine. It's just something that's interesting and I like to comment on. All right, now we got some screws to take off. And then I think we're getting pretty close to being able to take a look at all of these boards. So far, these green boards on the side, I don't see any issues with, but there definitely still could be issues with them. Just haven't seen any yet. This little metal piece you can just move out of the way. Oh, got one more clip. There we go. Yep, no big deal there. Oh, we do have some liquid marks on the speaker down here. Forgot this one has kind of this awkward thing where the camera down here is like, I don't remember if it's adhesive or it just sticks in there really good. It's kind of annoying when you're trying to get the board out though. Okay. One more clip there. All right, there we go. Now we can have a look at this board. All right, and with the board out, I see a number of problems. We've got problems around here and some problems over on this side, over here. I believe this is the area responsible for charging. Got some issues over here. Let's get this thing under a microscope and see what we're dealing with. So this area is definitely a problem, but this is only a small problem compared to what we have going on down here. Right there. So we got some major issues over here, and yeah, this definitely needs to be cleaned up. What else do we have? Over here, we've got some major issues going on right here. So far, I think all of this stuff will clean up just fine. I don't see anything that looks like it's going to be permanent, but some of this you just don't really know. This is probably the most worrying part though, right here. I'm not 100% sure what this chip does, but it's got a lot of corrosion all around it. And then we've also got some issues over here. Not too bad, but definitely some issues. So this is a perfect example of why there's no point in putting your wet devices in rice. Rice does absolutely nothing. If the person I bought this from wouldn't have put it in rice, all of this would have looked exactly the same. This actually looks maybe like the worst part of it. It looks like maybe we've got some traces here for electricity to follow, so that could be some of the worst of it. And then around on that other chip on the other side. But what I'm going to do first is just go through with a toothbrush and some 99% isopropyl alcohol, and let's see if we can get this corrosion removed. Now I am using a metal dental pick, which I actually don't recommend for most people. I use it because it's what works for me, but you gotta be super careful with stuff like this. You can easily be breaking this stuff, these tiny components off the board. Another reason that I don't mind using it is because even if I did break them off, I could fix it real quick, so that's the other reason I use it, but I don't actually normally recommend people use that. Okay, that's not too bad. Now this pad right here definitely is an issue, but the thing is it's not connected to anything. So we've got this trace over here, and it just goes to here. And actually, yeah, I don't think that's connected to anything. It almost looked like maybe there's a little connection here, but I don't think it actually is. I'm going to scrape off a little bit of this solder mask just so we can get a better view of this and just make sure it's not supposed to be going somewhere connected to anything, especially down here in the corner. Yeah, there's definitely a lot of rust down in here. Let's remove more of this solder mask. I'm really not worried about this. Like, I don't think that this is any issue, but then at the same time, I kind of am worried. I want to see how far this is spread. Make sure it hasn't spread somewhere that, you know, it's interfering with something else. But it looks like, yeah, I think what has happened is it has eaten through this pad right here, and then this is just getting down to the other layers on the board. So I'm not going to keep scraping at this because I don't want to wear away the rest of the layers of the board. So we're just going to leave that as is and move on to the next area. And we're going to get this little area right up here. This doesn't look that bad, actually. Got a little bit of, a little bit of white stuff, a little bit of corrosion, but not too bad at all. So a little toothbrush with some IPA, that just cleans that right up. Sometimes you do need to let it dry just to make sure it's fully clean, but that's looking pretty good. And that's with it dry, so that is completely gone. Now let's move down to a little more important of an area. I also don't know what this chip does, but probably people in the comment section do. I'm just scraping this just to get any of these loose pieces off a little bit. Same with over here. That'll just help it clean up better. Oh man, how did I not even notice this area right here? That looks pretty bad right there. That's definitely an issue. Let's see how that cleans up. Okay. Need to see if I can get something in here. That's a little bit too big. Let's try this dental pick. Yeah, it's got a little bit finer of a tip. Okay, that looks a lot better. I'm gonna clean up this battery connector, I mean, a little bit more. It really doesn't look too bad now that it's cleaned up, but I want to get it just a little bit better. So it looks like we have 2 resistors and and this capacitor and this capacitor. This is another resistor here. These don't look to be in the best shape, so I'm going to get my meter out and see if they're shorted or not. If they are, we'll need to do something about that. So, got my meter set on resistance mode. Let's see what the resistance of this resistor is. 1,000 kiloohms. 10 kiloohms. And 8.75 kiloohms. So those all seem to be fine. Don't see any issues there. That's good news. Now this little chip is a BGA chip, a ball grid array chip, so there is little tiny solder balls underneath of it. We may need to clean that a little bit better. I'm going to actually get some BW100. I'm going to actually get some BW100 and spray under there, and hopefully that will help clean that out if needed. If not, we might need to put it in a ultrasonic cleaner tank, but let's see if we can get it working as is. Okay, let's see if there's anything else. I think we got all of those spots on this side of the board. Now it's time for this side of the board. Let's clean this part first. Yeah, it's going to clean up just fine there. Now this part, though, might be different. Let's find out. So what you notice is I'm trying to move my brush from side to side as I'm cleaning. That just gets the bristles at different angles so it can clean at all different angles while I'm moving it back and forth to clean this thing. Okay, and other than a little bit of discoloration right here, that all cleaned up seemingly really good. Oh, we got a little bit of discoloration over here too. That's usually not too big of a problem. A lot of times that's just some oxidation we can scrape away. What I'm trying to see is if there's still a good connection here. What I'm going to do is test that. And my meter is in resistance mode again. So I'm going to put one lead right there and one right up here. And we're showing under 2 ohms, 1.5. And it would actually even be better if I had a little bit better connection. There we go, we're down at 0.8. So this solder connection is fine. Let's test this one. Okay, this one looks like a main voltage connection because it's got multiple pins. And a lot of times these planes where all these little dots are voltage connections. Yeah, we got 0.8 here too. So I'm thinking these capacitors could be part of the main voltage to this chip, along with probably this one down here since it's so large. As you can see, there's a little bit of that white residue we can start to see visible now again. So I'm going to go through and clean this all again, and I'm just going to keep cleaning it until that stays gone. That tells me that it is all fully cleaned. Now we have all that white residue gone from around these chips. So we're going to call this clean and double check and make sure there's nothing else that is corroded here. I might take a look under the shield. Actually, I probably should take a look under the shield to see if there's anything going on under there before we go through all the work of putting this thing back together. I don't want to just have to take it right back apart, even though it seems like that's what I do a lot. Oh, and I just noticed when I was taking this off, all of this kind of rust down here. Oh boy, I don't know what we're going to find here. But we got the shield loose. Let's take a look. Okay. Actually, not as bad as I thought. We got a little work to do there, a little to do there, but really not too bad. Let's just get these cleaned up real quick. Okay, really not too bad. Now we can get this thing back together enough to test and see if it's going to turn on. And back together enough to test. Let's see what happens when we plug it in to charge. We do get the orange light. Let's see what happens when we try to turn it on. We get nothing. Well, it's time to take it back apart and see if we can figure out what's going on the board. Since we have several BGA chips on this board that have been affected by corrosion, we can't really clean those very effectively because we can't get underneath. I decided to pull out my ultrasonic cleaner to clean this board, and using an ultrasonic cleaner can sort of clean out underneath all of the BGA chips. It doesn't do a perfect job, but it does much better than you can do by hand. So here we go with our board. I'm gonna put it down in here one way like this. And I will turn it on here for just a second so you can kind of see what it does, but I'm not gonna leave the cover off the whole time. Here we go. And the first side is done. Whoops. So we will pull it up, flip it over, and let it do the other side. And the second side is done. I think I'm actually gonna let this soak in here for a little bit and then do each side one more time, then we'll pull it out and have a look at it. All right, and we are now all done. Just giving this a good little rinse off. Okay, let's move on to the next step. Now what I'm gonna do is take some BW100 and basically just spray it all over the entire board. This will help displace any water that got any cracks or crevices or under any of these chips. All right, and now I'm just gonna let this air dry. I'll probably actually just let it air dry overnight just to make sure that it is completely dry. And then we'll try installing it back into the PS Vita and see if that's enough to fix it. If that didn't fix it, we'll have to start inspecting the board and see if we can figure anything out. I don't see anything very obvious on the board, and I'm not sure if there's schematics available for these, so we'll see how that goes. I may or may not be able to do any diagnosis on the board. Now that this board is all clean, I've been inspecting it again, and I took a quick look at this area again, and I was thinking that there's no connections on this pad right here, but what I just noticed is there is a line that goes from here, and it should go all the way over to this capacitor and then over to this pad. But as you can see here, it is broken. This is the connector for the power button. So if this line is broken, that could be preventing this PS Vita from turning on. So what I'm gonna do now is run a wire from over on this trace somewhere, probably from this pad right here, all the way over to this pad right here, connect it to the capacitor, and that will bypass this break and create a full restored circuit on this PS Vita board. The first thing I'm going to do is come in with some flux and put on the areas that I'm going to solder. The flux just helps the solder flow. Then I'm going to add some solder to the copper pad. Then I'm going to solder on a little tiny wire to that pad, and then I'll solder the wire onto the other pad and the capacitor. Now this part we technically don't need to do because the circuit does connect to this capacitor, and it would probably be fine, but I just want to make sure there's a really good connection here. We don't run into any problems. Okay, and there we go. Now I'm just gonna cut this tail off right there. Now we just need to come in and clean that up and inspect the joints. They look pretty good, but I do like to just give them a little inspection just to make sure. And hopefully that'll be enough to get this thing working. We've done quite a bit of work on it so far, and it'd be great to see this thing start up. Just gotta let that dry and then we'll install it and see if it works. And before we forget, okay, to be honest, I already forgot, but before I forget again, we need to replace this connector. Now there is a chance I could replace just this locking tab, but I don't want to break the locking tab that I have trying to install it into here, so I'm just going to remove this and solder a new one on. There are several ways that I can get this old connector off. I'm choosing to use a soldering iron, my large soldering iron that gets the hottest, to just basically melt it all off. I don't recommend this unless you have fume extraction, and even then it's probably not the best idea, so I definitely don't recommend doing it this way, but this is the way that I've chosen to do it today. So I'm going to come in with my large iron and just melt all of this plastic off, and then once that's done, I will install the new connector. And then I just need to solder on each of the small pins along with the two mounting pins, and then it should be good to go, and we should be finally ready to install this thing and see if it works. Now I've just got my fume extractor right close by, that's why it's a little bit loud. I'm just going to use my iron to come through and melt this plastic. not the best thing for your soldering iron. That's part of the reason I don't recommend it. But it does work, and it is fast. So that is why I sometimes still do it. A better option would be to use hot air to remove it, but in this case, this headphone connector right over here is kind of right in the way of that, and I don't want to melt it. So that's part of the reason I'm choosing to use a soldering iron to remove this. You do need to make sure not to ruin any of these pads on the board. So I'm just going to go through and kind of work these pads up as I go. Now I'm going to come through and touch up some of these solder joints. I don't have any flux on it yet, so I need to put some flux on it. I wanted to kind of get some of that plastic off. So here we go with the flux. We need plenty of it. There we go. Now it is time to install the new connector, and we got to get this thing lined up really close to where we want it, because once you start tacking these pins down, if you get 2 pins down and they're not where you need them to be, it's just a real pain to ever fix that. So, but usually what happens is I'll get it right where I want it, and then I bring my soldering iron in to solder it, and then everything moves. So let's see how we do. It is difficult because everything with this is so tiny. Yep. So what I'm going to do is grab it like this, put it about where we want it, solder one leg on, and then just double check everything. There we go. Ooh, that's... okay. So what I'm actually going to do now is bring my solder wick in and wick a bunch of the solder away. I can't get the connector to sit down on here all the way. And the reason is because there's too much solder on everything. So let's fix that. Now, it should sit down on here a lot flatter. It is a little more difficult to solder because there's not a fresh Vita solder on each of these pins. But the fact that we can get it to sit down on here flat like we want kind of makes up for that. Okay, so about right there is where we need it. A little bit of flux over here, a little bit over there. There we go. Now we'll come back in with my iron and resolder that little connection right there. There we go. This one's really not wanting to take any solder. It's probably because it's a larger plane here, so it takes a lot more heat. I might need to do that one with my large iron, but it's really nice being able to get in here with my small one, so I'm going to try that first a few times. Oh, that pin definitely needs to be better. Okay. And each of these pins looks good, nice and solid. And same with the pins on the front side. So now we can finally get this installed and see if it works. And I have it connected just enough to test. Let's press the power button. I don't have the screen or anything connected, just enough to see if this power button will light up the green light. Oh, it does. That is great news. Okay, so I'm gonna get this thing put back together the rest of the way and then we'll see if the screen will start up. And back together we go. Ideally, I would take this little board off before I try and get this in here, but I'm not gonna. I just like to do things the hard way, apparently. The hard but faster way, which actually isn't often the best way to go. And yet I still do it. But will we be able to plug in this ribbon cable to the connector we fixed? Well, let's find out. It's a super awkward angle. This is a lot easier to do. Oh, there we go. It's a lot easier to do when I'm not filming, but I actually got that. Okay, it plugs in okay. All right. And the back just goes on. Aha! This bumper button's trying to jump out of there. There we go. Okay. Just got a few more screws, and then we can see if it'll turn on. Okay, it's all together. Let's see if it's gonna turn on. Oh. Okay, let's see if we get a green light for. Oh, that's the volume button, not the power button. I was working on it upside down before. Okay. Probably hope if I turn the power button on. Oh, green light, good. Come on, oh, picture on the screen. That's what I'm talking about. Yeah, so this PS Vita is all fixed. Thanks again for watching today. Go check out TronicsFix.com and check out our new merch, and I hope you have a good one.